Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome back to English with Ikram. For the preparation of subject specialist and English lecture, I've started now this series of English literature. You know that I have finished with English linguistics, grammar, and everything like that. And now, in last session, Zoom live session, we discussed history of English literature, the first period, Anglo-Saxon period. And now this is a series for the preparation of English lecturer and subject specialist test plus interview. First, I discussed the full topic, the way I have told you that we have started history of English literature. First, I discussed the topic in live session, and then I discussed some very important MCQs based on that topic. In my last Zoom session, we discussed Anglo-Saxon period. In today's video, I will discuss 25 very important MCQs based on Anglo-Saxon period. And this is very, very much important for the test and interview of subject specialist in English lecturer in KPPSC or PPSC or any other commission test. So watch the video till end. These MCQs are very much helpful, very much important, and these will definitely help you in your coming test or interview. So let's get started. MCQ number 1. The history of English literature started with which period? The history of English literature started with which period? Anglo-Norman period, the Renaissance period, or the Anglo-Saxon period? And you know, especially the students who are in my WhatsApp group, who are preparing with me in my WhatsApp group or in live in classes, they know very well, I hope, because we have discussed this in detail. The right option is option C, Anglo-Saxon period. The history of English literature started with the Anglo-Saxon period. Number 2. Which period of English literature is called the ancestor of the English race? Which period of English literature is called the ancestors of the English race? The Puritan age, the Anglo-Saxon period, or the Renaissance period? Again, the option B, Anglo-Saxon period, is the right option. Anglo-Saxon period is the period of English literature which is called the ancestors of the English race. Number 3. The land which the ancestors of English race, Angles and Saxon occupied was called, the land which the ancestors of English race, Angles and Saxons occupied was called Denmark, Sweden, or England. And the right option is option C, England. The land which the ancestors of English race, Anglo and Saxon occupied, that was called England. Right? Number 4. In Anglo-Saxon poetry, who describes continental coasts visited in imagination by a far-wandering poet? I repeat. In Anglo-Saxon poetry, who describes continental coasts visited in imagination by a far-wandering poet? Widsith, Voltaire, the religious poets of the Anglo-Saxon period. And the right option is option A, Widsith. Okay. Next, 5. Who tells how Walter of Aquitaine withstood a host of foes in the passes of the Vosges? Who tells how Walter of Aquitaine withstood a host of foes in the passes of the Vosges? Widsith, Voltaire, or Caedmon? And the right option is option B, Voltaire. Voltaire tells how Walter of Aquitaine withstood a host of foes in the passes of the Vosges. Number 6. Which is the splendid fragment of the Anglo-Saxon poetry deal with the favorite theme of battle against fearful odds? Which is the splendid fragment of the Anglo-Saxon poetry deal with the favorite theme of battle against fearful odds? Complaint of Dewar, Beowulf, the Light of Finnsburg. And the right option is option C, the fight at Finnsburg. Number 7. The poem of Anglo-Saxon period which describes the disappointment of a lover is Beowulf, Complaint of Dewar, the Fight at Finnsburg. The poem of Anglo-Saxon period which describes the disappointment of a lover is the right option is option B, Complaint of Dewar. right? Number 8. The first English poem or heroic poetry of the Anglo-Saxon period was Beowulf, Complaint of Deer, or Ploughman. The first English poem or heroic poetry of the Anglo-Saxon period was Beowulf, Complaint of Deer, or option C, the Ploughman. The right option is option A, Beowulf. Number 9. Major portion of Anglo-Saxon poetry is romantic, religious, or miracle. Major portion of Anglo-Saxon poetry is romantic, religious, or miracle. The right option is option B, it's religious. Major portion of Anglo-Saxon poetry is religious. Number next. Who was the great pioneers of English prose? Who was the great pioneers of English prose? Who were the great pioneers of English prose? Alfred, Alfred, or both A and B? Who were the great pioneers of English prose? The right option is option C, both A and B. It means that both Alfred and Alfred were the great pioneers of English prose. Next, who wrote sermons in a sort of poetic prose? Who wrote sermons in a sort of poetic prose? Alfred, a priest, or William Langland? The right option is option B. Alfred, a priest, wrote sermons in a sort of poetic prose. Number next. A number of Latin chronicles in English was translated by which Anglo-Saxon prose? A number of Latin chronicles in English was translated by which Anglo-Saxon prose writer? Alfred the Great, Alfred a priest, or John Gower? The right option is option A, Alfred the Great. A number of Latin chronicles in English was translated by Alfred the Great. Next, when were the Angles and Saxons first landed in England? These two tribes. When were the Angles and Saxons first landed in England? Middle of 4th century, middle of the 5th century, middle of the 6th century. The right option is option B, middle of the 5th century. Angles and Saxons first landed in England. Next, the most prominent king among the Anglo-Saxon kings was Harold, William, Alfred the Great. The right option is option C, Alfred the Great was the most prominent king among the Anglo-Saxon kings. Next, which were the last of Saxon kings? Harold, Alfred, or Alfred the Great? Which was the last of Saxon kings? The right option is option A, Harold. He was the last of Saxon kings. Number next. The Anglo-Saxon or Old English period in English literature extends roughly from 670 AD to 1100 AD, 660 AD to 1100 AD, 650 AD to 1100 AD, Edo Domini. The Anglo-Saxon or Old English period in English literature extends roughly from option A, 670 AD to 1100 AD. Keep this thing in mind, the period that extends approximately from 670 AD to 1100 AD. Number next, one of the oldest poems in English, Beowulf, is written by Beowulf, is very renowned poem of this period, that was written by Caedmon, son of Wolf, Bede, or unknown. One of the oldest poems in English, Beowulf, is written by anonymous writer, unknown writer. The writer is not known. Beowulf is written by unknown writer. Next, the monster Grendel appears in the poem Witchit, Doers, Lament, or Beowulf, or D. Walker. The monster Grendel appears in the poem? The right option is option C, Beowulf. The poem, which is probably the oldest in English, is about personal account of the minister's life, account of life of king, both or none. The poem, which is probably the oldest in English, is about option A, personal account of the minister's life. The three tribes came to England in the middle of the 5th century. Germanic, French, Italian or Greek. These tribes came from option A, Germanic. These were Anglo-Saxon and Jutes. These were Germanic tribes. The three Germanic tribes came to England in the middle of the 5th century. Number next. Which Germanic tribes came to England in the middle of the 5th century? As I have told you, Angles, Jutes and Anglo-Saxon. C, both, or D, none. The right option is C, both. Angles, Jutes and Angle, or next option is option B, Saxon. Number C, both, or D, none. So obviously both the tribes came, Germanic tribes came to England in the middle of the 5th century. Who is called father of our English learning? Who is called father of our English learning? Bede, Steinwolf, King Alfred, or none? The right option is option A. Bede is called father of our English learning. The next is, who wrote Ecclesiastical History of English People? Who wrote Ecclesiastical History of English People? Bede, Steinwolf, King Alfred, or none? The right option is option A, Bede. He wrote Ecclesiastical History of English People. Number next. Who wrote Paraphrase? Caedmon, Steinwolf, Bede, or none? The right option is Caedmon. Caedmon wrote Paraphrase. And last MCQ, MCQ number 25. The didactic poem Christ is written by Christ, a didactic poem, a religious poem written by Steinwolf, Bede, Caedmon, or none. The right option is option A, Steinwolf. So dear students, these were 25 very much important MCQs based on the first period of the history of English literature, that's Anglo-Saxon period. We discussed this period in our last session, and now 25 MCQs. This is part 1. In part 2, I will discuss some more MCQs of this period, and in tomorrow, inshallah, we will discuss Anglo-Norman period, and here there will be a presentation by one of my participants. Then after that period, I will discuss again some MCQs based on that period. And this is a series for the preparation of English lectureship or subject specialist test and interview for KPPSC or PPSC or any other commission test. If you want to join our classes, live classes, WhatsApp group discussions, or MCQs practices, WhatsApp me on this WhatsApp number, your name, your city, and the post applied for. You have to pay a nominal fee, and then you will join us in our live classes and other practices. That's all for today. Thank you very much. Allah Hafiz.